Oh, good evening. Pleasure to be back up here at Genting. Becoming like a home away from home for me. Always nice to see such happy faces. A few new faces here tonight, and a few familiar faces. So for those familiar faces, how's the meditation been going? Have we managed to get some daily practice in each day? Yeah? And how's it going for you? The mind still wanders occasionally? Yeah. As I said, like last week I think it was, that's the nature of the beast. You know, our minds have spent so long going off and doing their own thing, and now we're trying to train it to behave itself, basically. And like I said, it's like with that little kid. You know, the little child's been out running around all day long, and then you say to the child, right, come in, sit down and shut up. The little kid doesn't want to come in and sit down and shut up. Hey, it wants to play, you know, and it'll be sitting in its seat, but it'll be squirming, you know. It's like, and it's still playing in its own mind. And that's what our minds are like, eh? They've played for so long, and now we're trying to stop them from playing, and they will play up, you know. And this is why the important thing is the daily practice, you know, finding that time that you can sit. And like I said, it doesn't have to be a long time, 10 minutes, 15 minutes. The important thing is to try and get it as a regular practice. And yeah, you bring the mind to know, and then when it wanders off, and eventually when you realize, because sometimes it takes us some time to notice that the mind's wandered away. You know, we're just sitting there grooving on whatever the mind is telling us, and then all of a sudden like, oh, not being mindful. And then we bring it back. But we bring it back lovingly. We bring it back gently. It's always the important thing, is lovingly and gently. And then we see how long again we can keep the mind just on the breath. So I wanted to have a little talk tonight. And since we've got some new faces, it's quite a good idea. A lot of people say that you don't need to be a Buddhist to meditate. Now, there is truth in that. You don't need to be a Buddhist to meditate. Meditation is not Buddhist. Meditation was around a long time before Lord Buddha, and people were doing it, and so we can see that we cannot say that meditation is necessarily Buddhist. However, there is a thing called Buddhist meditation. The difference between Buddhist meditation and ordinary meditation is the Dhamma. I was talking to a lady at the Buddhist Mahavihara a couple of days ago, and she was a little bit confused. Actually, she's a little bit angry because she'd been told by one person that meditation was not necessary. It was the Dhamma. She had to know the Dhamma. And then she had a meditation teacher who told her that the Dhamma wasn't necessary, it was the meditation. And she was a little bit confused by this. You know, it's like, who do I believe? You know, and actually this is very much like the question the Kalamas had for the Buddha in the Kalama Sutta. You know, so many people giving their own idea of what's right and what's not right. So I explained to her that they were both wrong. You know, I mean, they will quote, like people who say you don't need meditation, they will quote things like when the Buddha gave his first Dhamma talk to his 5 ex-buddies, and while he was talking, Kandana attained stream entry straight away. Not long afterwards became an arahat. And they say Kondana wasn't meditating. Kondana was a meditator. Kondana, in those years that he'd known Buddha as an ascetic, had been doing some very, very strenuous meditation. But note, he got the Dharma taught by the Buddha. So he already had the meditation in place. It was there. His mind was ready to receive the Dhamma. And when he received the Dhamma, that was it. He attained the stream entry, and not long after his four buddies followed suit, And so we can see, but that's their argument. They'll say that Kondana he wasn't a meditator, but that's totally incorrect. He was quite a big meditator, as had been the Buddha. He'd meditated under these teachers for 6 years. Now these teachers that Buddha learnt under were very good teachers. They were the best in the land, the best in the area. This is why he chose them. And yet they couldn't attain enlightenment, because the Dhamma, the true Dhamma, had not yet been rediscovered by the Buddha to be. And so they were unable to attain enlightenment because they didn't get the Dhamma. And so we can see that the Dhamma is extremely important. And so when we talk about meditation, it is true that there's non-Buddhist meditation and there's Buddhist meditation. Now, non-Buddhist meditation, it can take you quite a long way. It can make you very calm and it can make you very tranquil. But it can't give you enlightenment. And this is an important thing that we need to remember. So, we can see that there is a difference between meditation and Buddhist meditation. And actually it's quite surprising, because you will find, even in Buddhist temples, meditation being taught where they tell you, forget the Dharma, it's a hindrance. Since when did the Dharma become a hindrance to enlightenment? But I've actually personally witnessed these things in Buddhist temples being taught by Buddhist monks, that forget the Dhamma. It's a hindrance to your practice. And I don't quite see how a Buddhist monk can actually tell people to ignore the Dhamma, or that it's not necessary, because it is. So the next thing is, we need to understand why we meditate. And a lot of people, they will tell me, I want to get happiness, I want to get peace, I want to get calm. Happiness, peacefulness, calmness is something that will arise due to the practice of meditation, but we actually meditate to let go of things. If you sit down to meditate with an object in mind that I'm going to get peace, I'm going to get happiness, you're actually chasing after a desire. Now, it may be viewed as a virtuous desire, but it's a desire nevertheless, And then what happens is, when we don't get that peace in our particular meditation, and yourself, you sit there and the mind's off, So we become very disappointed. And when we become disappointed, we stop meditating. It's a waste of my time, I could have spent an extra 15 minutes in bed, And we actually stop the practice, because we're placing expectations upon the practice. And so we have to understand that we meditate to let go of things. Lust, anger and delusion are what we need to let go of. You know, we spend so much time chasing after the past. We were discussing this the other day. You know, we have this tendency, we think about the past, we actually have a tendency, we lust after the past quite a lot, you know. We want what we had back then. And it kind of reminded me of a story. Well, actually it's about my own life. But when I was about 7 years old, as many of you know, I grew up in Auckland City. About 7 years old, my family decided once during the school holidays we'd go to a little town in the Coromandel Peninsula called Tairua. And Tairua is probably about an hour and a half drive, maybe 2 hours drive from where we lived in the city. But we're going to go down there and we're going to spend 2 weeks down at Tairua. They'd had rented out a beach house, and we were going to hang out at the beach for 2 weeks, which I actually thought wasn't a bad idea. You know, I quite liked the beach. We had one quite close to where we lived, so, you know, I sort of grew up on the beach, and I fancied the idea of a beach. Just a different beach. So we're driving down towards Tairua, and about 30 minutes outside the township itself, I started to realise that there was going to be something wrong with my holiday, because there was no more asphalt. We'd gone onto gravel, and where I came from, nobody has gravel. Everything is asphalt. You've got a nice road. So we had about 40 minutes of this asphalt to deal with. And we finally get into this place. It wasn't even a town, you know. It kind of had a couple of little shops. I think there was a takeaway bar and like a convenience store. You know, which and then we got to the batch, to the beach house, and the stove. You had to put wood in the stove to cook. I was like, haven't these people heard of electricity? And I was like, you know, Mum's going, oh yeah, you know, you just have to go out and collect firewood. It's like, I'm 7. You know, I don't do that stuff, you know. And then it dawned on me, there was no television in the place. I searched under the beds, I searched in the wardrobe, I searched everywhere, but there was no TV. Because at that time in Tairua, they couldn't even get a signal for the television. And I'm like, what are we supposed to do for the next 2 weeks? And my mother comes up with a stupid idea. We could talk. Like, about what? All I'm going to talk about is the fact that there's no television set. We can play Monopoly. Hooray! I didn't like Monopoly. I wasn't allowed to cheat. And it's like, so for 2 weeks we had this holiday with no television set. Actually, it wasn't a bad holiday, to be honest. You know, we did entertain ourselves. Well, some years later, about 10 years later, me and some of my buddies and some of our girlfriends, we decided we should go to Tairua. Tairua is really cool. Tairua is really quiet. So we pack up the cars and off we go down to Tairua. No gravel. It's a smooth road all the way through. And as we started to come across this little bridge to get into the town, you could see the hotels everywhere. And the RVs, the recreational vehicles, parked up all over the spot with their satellite antennas and everything else. And I think we lasted about 2 days and we had to go. It was horrible. But it was based upon childhood memories that we were going to this place. And so the memories were false, you know. So we lust after these things that in actual fact we can't even get them back. They're gone forever, you know. And so one of the reasons that we have so much anxiety and angst in our life is because we can't get these things that, you know, when you remember what your skin was like when you were 13, 14 years old, eh? It's like, you know, no amount of spackle is going to get rid of the blooming crow's nest now, eh? It's like, you know, all of these things, it's like, you know, we want them and we can't have them. Or we worry about the future, you know. Am I going to have a job next week? You know, will my girlfriend still love me? You know, all of these sorts of things. We worry about things that haven't even happened, you know, and we start to stress out. And this is the lust that we have in our minds, you know. We lust after the things that we can't have. We have an aversion to the things that we think we might get, you know. And all of these things, they're mind-made. You know, so we have to start to let them go. And these things are all based actually upon delusion, you know. There's the delusion about the self, the delusion about the I, you know. I want, I don't want. You know, when we get angry, you know, we say, I am angry. So we take ownership of an emotion called anger. You know, why would anybody want to own a thing called anger? It's just silly, you know. But we personalize it, you know. Things that we like, I like that, I want that, you know. And it's this delusion that keeps us struggling all of the time and becoming stressed out and for so many people depressed, you know. Depression sets in quite quickly, you know, because we just don't know how to control these things. And so when we meditate for the sake of letting go of these things. You know, for that 15 minutes, all you have to do is be in the present, you know. I said last week, turn off the mobile phone. You don't need it for 15 minutes, you know. The world is not going to end because you turned off your mobile phone, you know. Life will go on. You know, so we find that quiet spot and we turn it off and we just need to stay in the now, you know, for 15 minutes. But you'll see just how difficult staying in the now is, because your mind wants to play up. And so you sit down and then you start to plan the future. What am I going to do when I finish meditating? Doesn't matter. Let's finish the meditation first instead of worrying about what we're going to do. You know, it's like, this is why we don't enjoy our lives, because we can never stay in the moment. We are so busy chasing after the next dream that we don't actually have time to enjoy the moment that we've got, you know. And so when we meditate, we see the mind's doing that. But now we just start to bring the mind back to the breath. And then it wanders off again. We just bring the mind back to the breath. Wanders off, we bring it back to the breath. You know, we always have to make sure when we bring it back, when we see that the mind has wandered, don't get angry. Don't get angry is one of the things we're trying to get rid of. So we don't need to get angry when we're meditating, you know, because we're trying to get rid of the anger. But it's a natural thing, because we all want to be successful, you know. That's the way we're educated, to be successful, to be the best in our class, to be the best at sport, to be the best at whatever, you know. We're brought up that way, we're trained that way, our minds get hardwired that way. And then as soon as you sit down to try and meditate, you realise just how difficult the whole thing can be. And it becomes very, very easy to give up, you know. And yet we can be so pedantic at times. We will stick to a point, you know. Even if we're wrong sometimes, we can stick to the point. We're not going to admit that we're wrong. And yet as soon as we sit down to meditate, we'll give up because we can't do it, you know. We need to have the persistence. And I was telling, for those of you who weren't here last week, I was telling everybody, if you have a 10-minute meditation session, no matter how rubbish it appears to be, just if you can remain sat for the 10 minutes, then you can give yourself a pat on the back. You know, the mere perseverance of trying to bring the mind to that point of focusing on the breath. The fact that you didn't get up after 5 minutes and say, this is rubbish. You can actually give yourself a tap on the shoulder. Say, well done, you know. And then the next time you sit down, see how it goes again, you know. If you get 2 seconds, 3 seconds where the mind remains on the breath, at the end of 10 minutes, give yourself a pat on the back, you know, because it's hard work. It really is hard work. I mean, you see how long it took the Buddha to get anywhere, and he was a bodhisattva, so, you know, but we can do it. There's a lot of different types of meditation about. I was saying the other day, the Buddha taught 40 different types of meditation. They can be broken down a little bit because the kasina meditation, for instance, you know, like when you would, like, say, look at a coloured piece of paper, a blue piece of paper, and you have a, you know, stare at it for a while, and then you close your eyes and you try to hold the image of the blue piece of paper for as long as you can in your mind. But you'd add about 10 of those, so, you know, we can start to break it down. Meditation on death. You know, a meditation on death is a good meditation because we become so attached to these bodies that it's good to actually understand that we are all getting older. Sickness and death are part of the process of birth. And if we can see that, then we learn to let go of the concept of the I quite quickly, and two, it actually makes us want to meditate a little bit more when we realize that we don't know when we're going to die, but we do know that we're going to die, each and every one of us. So there's death meditation. There's the meditation on the foulness of the body, which is used for lust in a lot of instances. So if you keep having lustful thoughts, then you just turn the body inside out and have a quick examination of what the intestines and the bile and all that sort of stuff look like, and, you know, you'll find your lust will start to go down quite quickly. Not such a pleasant, you know, we always look at the outside of a person, eh? Try examining the inside of them, and not quite so pleasant, you know. So there are many, many types of meditation that even the Buddha taught. But the one that Buddha seemed to teach the most, the one that Buddha was doing on the night of his enlightenment, was Anapanasati. And even after the Buddha became enlightened, he continued to do Anapanasati, you know, on a daily basis. He recommended to the monks to do Anapanasati. And so, obviously, Anapanasati, and very close to the heart of the Buddha, is a meditation well worth practicing. So if I may, I'd just like to read a little something here. This is from the Anapanasati Sutta, meditation on breathing. So the text starts, "Herein, monks, a monk who has gone to the forest or to the foot of a tree or to an empty place sits down cross-legged, holding his back erect, arousing mindfulness in front of him." Now, although this addresses the monks, because obviously he was talking to the monks at the time, this applies to not just the bhikkhus, but the bhikkhunis, and of course all of the laymen and the laywomen. Now, sitting cross-legged, it does have benefits. It keeps you quite stable for a start. It stops you rocking around backwards and forwards. However, if you can't sit cross-legged, then find a position that you can sit in. If you can't sit on the floor, sit in a chair. You know, some purists will say, no, you must sit in the full lotus position. And I just tell them that that's unfair because it means one-legged people aren't allowed to meditate. And I don't think the Buddha would have been discriminatory against people with one leg. I think he'd have been more compassionate than that. So going to a quiet place, even when you people come here to the centre, you know, and the brother dims the lights, and you haven't got some monk yabbering on in your ear, you have that quiet place. It is a quiet place. You know, if the people are being as quiet as they possibly can, then you found that quiet spot. You know, you don't have to go walking into the forest. You know, don't need to go looking for a cave. This can become your cave, you know. When you start the practice of meditation, you are solitary. There's not a group of you around. There's only you and your mindfulness, you know. So as I say, don't worry too much about the full lotus position if you can't do it, because it's not 100% necessary. So we see that if you want to meditate, you'll go and find yourself a quiet place if you really want to practice. Now, the sutta goes on, it says, if he breathes in a long breath, he should comprehend this with full awareness. If he breathes out a long breath, he should comprehend this with a full awareness. If he breathes in a short breath, he should comprehend this with full awareness. And if he breathes out a short breath, he should comprehend this with full awareness. So here, this is the practice that we've been doing, is you're just bringing your mind to the forefront. Now, when it says bringing your mind to the forefront, it just means trying to keep it in this one position, not going to the past, not going to the future, and fixing this object, which in this case is the breath. And here the Buddha is saying, we comprehend, or we're aware, if I'm breathing in long, I'm breathing in long. If I breathe out long, I'm breathing out long. If I breathe in short, I'm breathing in short. If I breathe out short, I'm breathing out short. We don't start doing short breaths and long breaths. This is not what the Buddha taught. You know, some places will teach, you know, do so many long breaths and so many short breaths. That is not what the Anapanasati Sutta says. It just talks about having an awareness of whether the breath is a long breath or a short breath. So we know breathing in long, it's a long breath. We know breathing out long, it's a long breath. Breathing in short. So as I say, we're not trying to control our breath. This is the beauty about breath meditation. All you have to do is breathe and be aware of breathing. The breathing part is easier than the awareness part. But we always have our breath, so we always have the object of meditation to take, you know, that we can take our mind to know. And so it's a fairly simple instruction. It says here, he breathes in practicing the whole body, experiencing the whole body. He breathes out experiencing the whole body. That is, with well-placed mindfulness, he sees the beginning, the middle, and the end of the two phases. That's of the in-breath and of the out-breath. And as he practices watching the in-breath and the out-breath with mindfulness, he calms down and tranquilizes the two functions of breathing in and breathing out. So what we have here is, when we begin the meditation practice, we're aware of when the breathing begins, we're aware of the beginning, we're aware of the length, and we're aware of the ending of the in-breath. And then we become aware of the beginning of the out-breath, the length of the out-breath, and the ending of the out-breath. As we become aware of these things, then we can start to actually, sometimes our breath is a little bit coarse, a little bit shaky sometimes. We can actually start to make the breath more refined. And the more refined your breath is, then the greater effect it's going to have on your mind and on your body. So as you start to tranquilize your breath, then your body will become more tranquilized. As your body becomes more tranquilized, it's easier to make the mind more tranquilized. Because when the body is tight, the mind is tight. And so we can see through this practice, we just a little bit of breathing, just a little bit of stillness, and we start to calm everything right the way down. The Buddha illustrates this with a simile. When a clever turner or his apprentice works on an object on his lathe, he attends to his task with fixed attention. In making a long turn or a short turn, he knows that he's making a long turn or a short turn. In the same manner, if the practitioner of meditation breathes in a long breath, he comprehends it as such. And if he breathes out a long breath, he comprehends it as such. If he breathes in a short breath, he comprehends it as such. And if he breathes out a short breath, he comprehends it as such. He exercises his awareness so as to see the beginning, the middle, and the end of these two functions of breathing in and breathing out. He comprehends with wisdom the calming down of these two aspects of in-breathing and out-breathing. Now it's interesting here, we've just gone into the concept of wisdom. We are starting to really see the breath as we start to tranquilize it. And so we can start to see that we can, all of these things, as we can calm our breath down, so can we calm other things down in our lives, This is something that we need to understand, So these things like anger, when we see that we can calm the breath down, we also start to understand we can start to calm all the other things down in our lives that keep us stressed out, get us upset, and take us away from the peace and the calm that you're actually all seeking, In this way, he comprehends the two functions of breathing in and out in himself, and the two functions of in-breathing and out-breathing in other persons. This is quite important, because when we start to comprehend with wisdom, as I breathe, so do others breathe. So we're now taking it to ourselves, and we're taking it outside of ourselves, And then when we start to do this, we start to feel true compassion for other living beings, because then we truly start to understand, as I want to be happy, so do others want to be happy. And when we truly start to comprehend the fact that all living beings want to be happy, then we really start to change the way we treat other beings. You're quite happy to feed a few scraps of food to a stray dog or to a stray cat, rather than like kicking it and get out of it, And you see the beggar sitting at the side of the road, not normally near an ATM machine where I come from. Our beggars are quite high class. They sit near the banks where the ATM machines are. They see you pulling the money out and they go, "Spare a dollar, mate." It's like, oh dear. Which is a bit hard in New Zealand actually, because our currency starts with a $5 note, so we don't have any dollar coins or $2 coins anymore. They're all $5 notes. So the old beggars are really after a decent amount of money. And but we sit there and we go, well, I earned that money, you bum, get a job. And there might actually be reasons why that person hasn't got a job, Maybe it is because he's too lazy, but we don't know. But we can spare some change for the beggar, because we understand that you wouldn't want to be in his position, hungry and homeless, and so we start to have compassion. But this compassion starts through our meditation process, as we start to calm ourselves, and we do start to understand that as I breathe, others breathe. As I suffer, others suffer. As I want happiness, others want to have happiness. And so this is how, with the practice of the meditation, the other things start to kick in, because something that you have to have if you want to meditate is sila, morality. And this is why some of these meditation schools that don't teach the Dhamma, they don't teach the 5 precepts. And you can't meditate if, to the best of your ability, you're not keeping the 5 precepts. We see how difficult it is to keep the mind in place as it is. It wanders off. It fantasizes. So you imagine if you're breaking the precepts, if you're not even attempting to keep the precepts, how agitated is your mind going to be? So the minute you sit down to meditate, your mind is just going to tell you, yeah, but what about when you did that? What about that? If you've been falling around on your partner, you sit down and start meditating, and the car door shuts outside your house. You're suddenly thinking, oh my gosh, I wonder if that's her husband found out about me. Your mind will do this to you. If you've stolen something, and again you hear a car door slam outside your apartment, it's like, is it the police? You can't meditate. Your mind won't allow you to meditate. And so it's extremely important that, to the best of our ability, we try and keep the 5 precepts. And I always point out to people, we're only human and we make mistakes. But thankfully we're Buddhists, so we don't feel guilty about things. Because that's not a concept in Buddhism. There's no such thing as guilt to a Buddhist. There's a moral sense of shame. And when you have a moral sense of shame, what we do is we say, I'm going to try harder not to do that in the future. And we get on with our lives again, Guilt, if any of you do suffer from guilt, the advice I'd like to give you is, stop it. It's just silly, Guilt, I often say, it's like, if you have a backpack and you put your backpack on and then you do something wrong and you feel guilty, it's like picking up a brick and putting it in your backpack and walking around. And then when you do something else wrong, you pick up another brick and you put it in your backpack. That backpack's going to get very, very heavy. It's going to weigh you down. It's going to wear you out, And it's not until you take that backpack off and all of a sudden the weight's going to lift off of your shoulders. And so we don't need to have guilt. We have a sense of remorse, oh man, wish I hadn't done that. I'll try harder the next time. And then forgive yourselves. People always run around going, I hope somebody can forgive me for this. What do I do? Because I don't know where that person lives anymore, And it's like, forgive yourself. That's all you can do, forgive yourself. If you can't, you can't physically go out to everybody and, and make amends. You can't physically go around and apologize to everybody for things that you've done wrong. You know? I mean, people have moved on. People have, you know, I mean, some people you've only met briefly, done something wrong and moved on yourself. You're never going to find them again. You have to let it go, you know, and let things work out the way that things work out. Sometimes we can go to people that we've hurt and say, I'm sorry, please forgive me. Now somebody asked me one day, they said, what if they don't? Well, that's their karma, not yours. It only becomes your karma when you get angry with them for not forgiving you. This is important to understand. If you do something to harm me, you say something nasty about me, and then you come back 20 minutes later and you say, look, I'm sorry, I should never have said that. If I'm not prepared to say, hey, that's cool, and let it go, then it's me that creates negative karma for myself, but not you. You've created the positive karma by coming to apologize, and that's enough. You know, just because somebody says, no, I can't forgive you, that's not your fault. That's their fault. That's their karma, not yours. Don't make any more karma, you know. Just walk away, and that's it. And have compassion for that person, because that person, a person who can't forgive, they've got a real problem in their lives, you know, and they're gonna wind up getting ulcers and stuff like that, you know, because they're going to be stressing and all sorts of gases are going to be releasing into their stomachs and eating the flesh away and stuff like that. So we feel compassion for these people. But we have to forgive ourselves. That's the most important thing to do. It's like when we start our meditation session, and we'll do some meditation shortly, because time's pushing on. When we start our meditation practice, start with metta. But when we start with metta, give it to yourself first. You know, you're allowed to be compassionate towards yourself. And too often we're not. Too often we run around being compassionate to others and we forget about ourselves. You know, and we are entitled to compassion. And you can't sit there going, well, somebody else is sending metta to me, so it's okay. It doesn't work like that. They might not be. So give yourself that time, you know, that understand that you have the frailties of a human being, and it's okay to fail sometimes, you know. So forgive yourself, and then just say to yourself, may I be happy. May I know the cause of happiness. May I be free of suffering and the cause of suffering. And then you can give metta to others. You know, some people get very detailed. May my mother and father be happy and be free. Don't need to do that. You know, that could take you forever. You could get so detailed, you know. But you can just turn around and say, may all sentient beings be happy and know the cause of happiness. May they be free of suffering and the cause of suffering, you know. But make sure that you allow yourself some happiness, you know. We always deny ourselves because it's almost like we're being selfish. I mean, well, we're not supposed to be selfish because we're Buddhists. And so, like, no, I'm not going to be selfish. I'm not going to offer myself happiness, you know. I don't want it. It's selfish. I'm going to give it away. That's selfless. No, that's dumb. That's dumb. You've got to give yourself some love, you know. There's that saying in English, you know, you can't, you know, how can you love somebody else if you don't love yourself, you know? Of course, sometimes we take it too far, you know. Like, I had a girlfriend once, she told me, she said, I think you love yourself more than you know me. And I said to her, I've known myself longer. Doesn't go down well with your girlfriend. But we are allowed to love ourselves. It's necessary to love ourselves, you know? Then we have compassion for ourselves. Then we start to have compassion for others, you know. The hardest people to have compassion for, of course, are those that have hurt us. But when you start to truly have compassion for people that have hurt you, then you truly have compassion. it's very easy to be compassionate towards those that we love. You know? It's like, oh yes, I'm compassionate to my children. Well, that would be expected. But you know, the person who, you know, stole your car, you know, try and be compassionate to that person, you know. And it's not so easy. But that is when we start to truly practice compassion, you know. But it's through understanding that as you want to be happy, so do they want to be happy. And this is what you're going to get from the practice of your meditation. Just with that breath meditation, as you find that you're keeping your mind on the breath longer and longer, then we can start to tranquilize the breath. And then as we start to tranquilize the breath, then we actually do start to think, as I breathe in long, so do others breathe in long. As I breathe out long, so do others breathe out long. Now we're starting to understand internally and externally the way things work, you know. And then we well and truly get into the practice of Anapanasati. But as I say, it's going to take a little time. You know, don't disappoint yourselves. You know, there's plenty of other people out there who are ready to put you down. You don't need to do it yourself, you know. So when you start the practice, I'll say, expect nothing. When you expect nothing, you can't be disappointed. You know, you can't disappoint a pessimist, you know. A pessimist can only ever be made happy. You know, because you say, oh, it looks like it's going to be a nice day today. So, oh, it'll probably rain this afternoon. You know, that's a pessimistic attitude. So when it doesn't rain that afternoon, he's quite happy because it didn't rain. And when it does rain, he's not disappointed anyhow because he's like, you know, you expected it to rain in the first place, you know. So you can't disappoint a pessimist. When we go into a meditation session, expect nothing. Then you're not going to disappoint yourself, you know. It's when we have expectations, when those expectations don't take place, then we get upset. So what we're going to do now is we're just going to spend a little bit of time, maybe 15 minutes. So all you need to do is, first of all, spend a minute or two getting comfortable. Okay? You need to have a comfortable, relaxed body. Your back needs to be straight but not rigid. If you get into the rigid back, you're going to have a sore back within a few seconds and you're not going to be able to practice the meditation. So just spend a minute or two relaxing your body up. And then when your body's starting to feel a little relaxed, then bring your mind, just to know, at the moment just bring your mind to see your body. Bring your mind to know the relaxation of your body. Get the shoulders dropped. That's the first thing. As soon as you drop your shoulders, your body's going to start to relax up. So get into a relaxed position, and when you're relaxed, just bring your mind to know the in and out breath. Just be aware of breathing in and aware of breathing out. Breathing in and breathing out. If the mind wanders, when you realize it's wandered, we were just going to bring it back gently. We're going to bring it back lovingly, and we're going to see if we can't keep it there for a few more seconds. So let's do some practice now. So, how many people found that easy? As I said, when, we call this a meditation practice. And why? Because we're not perfect at it yet. But as we practice, and for those of you who weren't here last week, we want to try and find 10 to 15 minutes at least per day to practice meditation. If you can only get one session, and then the best session is when you wake up in the morning. Your body is refreshed, your mind is refreshed. And so if you can get 10 or 15 minutes of practice, then great, do it. And try and keep the practice up on a daily basis, even on your days off. Because when it comes to meditation, there are no days off. If you can do 2 sessions per day, even better. One in the morning and one just before you go to bed. I often recommend to people, the Buddha taught sitting, standing, walking and laying down meditation. Now laying down meditation, I recommend at bedtime and at no other time during the day because it does lead to sleep. But that's fine. If you meditate yourself to sleep, you're going to have a good night's sleep, And so, although the preferred method is the lion position, laying down on the right hand side, supporting the head with one foot. But we don't all sleep like that, So however you sleep, when you lay down to go to sleep, just be aware, first of all, of your body position. Just bring your mindfulness to know that you're laying down. And then you can bring your mind back to the breath. You will notice that your breath is different from the breath that you were using in the morning. The way you breathe is different. But you'll start to notice as you start the meditation, you'll start to notice that you're feeling drowsy. But at this stage, that's okay. We're allowed to get this drowsiness. This is part of what we're trying to do, is meditate ourselves to sleep. And so if you can do 15 minutes in the morning and then start to do this meditation at night time, even better, Because we can all see just how difficult it is to keep the mind in one place, Right now it wants to play, So understand that that's the nature of this mind that we have at the moment. It's always played and it's going to want to play for a long time. So we just be gentle with our mind all the time. There's gentleness. When we notice it's gone, and as I say, sometimes it takes a long time to notice it's gone. You start doing your meditation, and then you might become aware suddenly that you're going, you're thinking breathing in and you're breathing out. Something's gone wrong there. But it happens. But sometimes the mind wanders and you're off in cloud la la land somewhere, and you could be out there for ages, enjoying it, But once you know it's happened, then we just bring it back. But as I say, we always bring it back with love. We never ever bring the mind back with anger, because that's something we're trying to get rid of, So even if you only, like I said earlier on, if you get not 1 second with the mind staying with the breath, the fact that you sat for 15 minutes, pat on the back. It's okay, because you persevered with the practice. And that's one of the things that the Buddha talks about, is the need for perseverance, And it will come. Sometimes very slowly, or sometimes like that, But it will come if you continue practicing. So are there any questions? Absolutely. Absolutely. As I don't like talking about this too much, because Brother Billy Tan's sitting down the corner. If I get it wrong, he's just going to go ta-ta-ta-ta. Because I don't know all the chemicals, but I can remember adrenaline. When you're stressed, your body releases adrenaline and something else, but we'll talk about
cortisol and adrenaline
and cortisol. There you go. So, and you know this, like when you get really angry, or you get in a situation where it looks like you're in danger, somebody's going to try and rob you or whatever, beat you for what, and you start to shake. Well, that's like the adrenaline. It's pumping massive amounts of adrenaline into your muscles and everything else. And it's what they do call the fight or flight syndrome that we have. So we're trying to work out, are we going to run away? Or are we going to stand our ground? And, So when these particular chemicals are being pumped into our system, our immune system has to shut down. Because if our immune system didn't shut down, it would be trying to attack all of these things that are there that we've gotten used to having for these particular situations. So it would attack it. So it has to shut down. So if you can imagine, even in daily life when we don't appear too stressed, just the normal stress of daily life, well, you blokes not so much, but like the woman, they got, what am I going to wear? I've got nothing to wear, as they're looking at 150 suits in the wardrobe, I'm lucky I'm a monk. I don't have that problem at all. What am I going to wear today? Oh, maybe I'll just chuck on that orange robe, shall I? So that's one form of stress I don't have. But all of these things, am I going to get to work on time, And they might not be things that seem to be stressing us out, but they are. And so all the time we're having some sort of stress, things like the adrenaline are being released. Maybe not in a massive dosage, but it's being released. So every time that's happening, your immune system is doing what it will naturally do. It understands adrenaline's being released, shut down. So you imagine how much damage you must be doing to your body, shutting your immune system down constantly. It's there for a purpose, So when we can start to calm our minds down, then we become less. And it's like stress. When you see people with stress, I believe that's one of the big causes of hernias. Would that be right? Do you know anything about that, Brother Billy? Hernias or ulcers or something like that, caused by stress. So stress is mental. The ulcer is physical. So if we can calm the mind down, and today some hospitals in the West have started doing things like guided meditations and stuff for patients to help them heal from their surgery faster. They've actually started to understand that the calmer they can make the patient, then the quicker, it's probably all to do with money, get them out of the hospital as quickly as possible so they can bring the next patient in, but that doesn't matter. They're actually finding that patients are healing quicker through meditation, and so hospitals in New Zealand are supposed to now offer what they call alternative medicines, alternative healings, to patients, and they have stated that they're able to get people up and out of their beds up to a third quicker than the people who aren't actually doing any meditation, who say they don't want any of that hippie rubbish, they'd just rather lay there and take the drugs. And so these people who are trying mindfulness are actually healing faster. So yeah, definitely meditation is good for the mind and it's good for the body.